We'd like to welcome you to BMORENEWS.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth. We're here at Morgan State University in the city of Baltimore with Professor of Political Science, Dr. Getachew Metaferia. How are you, sir?
Thank you. Doing well.
Good. We need to get an update on North Africa and what has been happening as it relates to the upheavals. And of course, we're nearing the end of May 2011. Where are we today?
The government in Libya is still in power. There are a lot of challenges against the government, and the government is massacring its own people. And it seems that Libya is going to be divided into two: the eastern part in Benghazi and in the western part in Tripoli. But I hope that's not going to happen. And the Libyans are saying that they are one, and they have to stay one, I believe.
Was this foreseeable that the country was being divided into? I mean, at first, the opposition was making its way to Tripoli with the Allied NATO support coming in, and then Gaddafi fought back. Uh, was it always clear that there was just going to be a part that Gaddafi could not take, but at the same time, a part that the rebels were not going to be able to take Tripoli?
Well, the rebels were not really supported. Gaddafi is well armed. His security apparatus, his security agents are well entrenched. So this is the Goliath against David. So two unparalleled forces. The group in Benghazi, basically they are underarmed, not trained. They are basically civilians who are fighting against well-equipped and well-trained, well-entrenched regime. So that is the major differences between the two powers there.
When I think of some of the political responses and even critiques of President Obama, I'm noticing now, for instance, John McCain has been on the record as being for more of an attack onto Libya. At the same time, I'm hearing input from Donald Trump and others uh, who have no experience as to what it takes to deal with the situation in Libya as well as the other countries in that region.
Actually, some are saying that once we're there, we need to take the oil. Historically, when you go and fight, you take the land. Now we have to go and get the oil. And that is very irrational statement by some politicians. But as far as President Obama is concerned, he was very shaky in his policy towards Libya. He was not coming forward and trying to support the people who are being massacred by
He didn't?
he didn't. He came in late and he was very hesitant, and even the Arab League was supportive of
Well,
some.
shouldn't the Arab League have jumped in first? Were they the first to jump in?
Well, they couldn't do it, but again, they were also opposed to the policy of the African Union. The Arab League was very strong. It was very strong again, and it was opposed to what is going on in Libya.
Well, it's, the way it seemed was that at first everyone was saying, Mr. President, do something about it. And he took his time and he finally did something about it. And when he did, they were saying that you shouldn't have done it. There were still critics saying, well, you shouldn't have went there at all.
Well, he's very deliberative. He takes his time. He looks in both ways, and he is also fighting two wars in.
I mean, would you be quick to go to Libya if you were
I
president
won't.
of the U.S.?
I won't be. I'll take my time, and rational decision making basically takes time and has to look into all the options, and I believe that is what he did. But again, the government of, I mean, other governments like France, for example, was outright, and Italy was outright, and in basically in challenging Libya's or Gaddafi's regime.
Does it matter that these countries are former colonial powers?
Yes, they were foreign colonial powers,
Does
but
that
again,
matter?
the thing is that Libya, Gaddafi doesn't have friends all over the world. It seems that the African Union is the only one very sympathetic to Gaddafi, simply because Gaddafi has spent a lot of money lavishly on some of these leaders. And AU basically was established. Organization of African Unity was changed to African Union as a result of the money that Gaddafi pumped. And he spent lavishly on some of these leaders, and they are also corrupt. These leaders are corrupt. So basically, they can't say a lot about or a lot against Gaddafi.
Is this similar to what goes on in other countries in Africa and this region of the world?
True, true. All of them are corrupt, and you scratch my back, and I scratch yours. That, as the saying goes, so that's what we are observing now. And unfortunately, that is the way it is. Those who have money and those might also seems to be right. Those who have the might, those who have the power, seem to be right, at least at the moment. But eventually, African leaders will come to their sense and critique this regime of Gaddafi, which is bombing and which is massacring innocent people, and that is uncalled for. And using tanks, using airplanes against his own citizens, that's uncalled for. And again, I believe that it's time for Gaddafi to leave and that Libya rebuild itself, and come into some kind of understanding among themselves, among the Libyans themselves, to establish democracy and to build sustainable development in their country.
Dr. Metaferia, give us a sense of what else is happening to some of the hotspots in that very area of the world. And I've been hearing about Syria in the news as of late.
Syria is also in the news. Syria is supported, is a minority regime. President Assad, Hafiz Assad's son, he is also very much entrenched. He has a military, and the Alawite are the small segment, minority sect in Libya. I'm sorry, in Syria, and these are also supported by the government. The government supports, militarizes, gives military support to these Alawite soldiers and troops, and minority ethnic groups against the majority. So that's also boiling up in Syria.
Bahrain and Yemen, these were Cairo, Egypt. I mean, these were just hotspots on everybody's radar, particularly as a result of the social media phenomena.
Yes, what they call the Arab awakening. Basically it is as a result of a long time of dictatorship, unemployment, and all of these have contributed. So all of them were basically sitting on a time bomb, and it seems that the time bomb has ignited itself, and it is that's what we are seeing now. That's what we are observing. And again, in most African countries, in sub-Saharan African countries also, that is a trend, because there is no uprising now, but they're going to be soon. They're going to be uprising. We already have seen some uprising for example, in Uganda, walk to work movement, where people are saying that they are fed up of unemployment, fed up of high cost of living. And because of all of this, they are challenging the government of President Museveni. President Museveni is re-elected, and he is spending about $1.3 billion for his quote-unquote coronation, I would say. So a lot of money being spent. We see some writings on the wall as well.
When you think of Africa, is Botswana still leader in terms of democratic stability and financial or economic stability?
Botswana is a good example of a stable government. Its government is president have been there. Those who left office, they are still there, highly respected, and the population of Botswana is about 6 million people, and basically well managed, well run. That is a classic example of good governance in Africa as of now.
Back in 1999, the world was watching China as it handled 97, watching China as it handled the Hong Kong reversion. Today, China is expanding. I don't know if you would call it colonialistic, but they are certainly in Africa Uh, how is Africa responding to the Asian influence?
China is seen as countries that are assisting African countries to build. At the same time, also, there are those who are vehemently opposed to what is going on in Africa vis-a-vis China. China is supporting dictators. Historically, China was with African fighters in the 60s, for example. It was the first to build the Tanzam Railway from Tanzania to Zambia, and it was supporting freedom fighters. It was with the people. But now what we see is that, or what we witness is that Zambia is not with the people, but it is with the dictators. Why? Because China needs resources. It is a resource-hungry country. It needs oil, it needs other minerals.
But I thought China was making its re-emergence from the sleeping giant, if you will, into a world hegemon that was often critical of U.S. ways of operation and the West's ways of operation. And you're saying that China's now replicating, imitating, doing the same thing?
Definitely. Actually, much more. Much more. For example, in some countries, China is involved in what is called the land grab, buying, leasing, so to say, leasing land for 60 years, 90 years at $1 hectare per hectare per year, and uh, they are basically, China is affected by drought, desertification, and all of this. So it needs food material for its people. So what it's doing is leasing, so-called leasing land in African countries, and trying to feed its people. At the same time, Africans are also hungry. Famine in Ethiopia, for example, about 7 million people. There is famine in Ethiopia. The Ethiopian government, on the other hand, is leasing fertile land, what I call the Ethiopian green gold. Okay, basically, lush areas are being
What
leased.
should Ethiopia be doing? Should they be more entrepreneurial?
You don't do that with your own people. While your own people are hungry, uprooting those people, taking them, resettling them to another place, and giving this land, their land, to China. While the people are hungry, the food is not consumed by the people. Rather, the Chinese lorries will come in, trucks will come in empty, and leave Ethiopia and other countries full of food.
Now, Ethiopia is feeding China and it's not feeding itself first.
That's right. That's the way to put it. That's the way to
But,
put it.
but Ethiopia was never colonized. Why are they in this position?
The leadership is mind is basically is not in the national interest of the country.
Again,
There is money involved in
is it a
it.
dictator? Greedy dictator at the top?
That's what they are. That's what they are in other African countries as well, and Ethiopia is not exception. They are leasing land for 60, 40 years for consumption of food for Asian countries, Malaysians, Saudi Arabians, while Ethiopians are starving. And again, that does not make sense. Where is the national interest? What I would say is that Africa or Ethiopia is feeding other countries at the same time begging for food.
When I think of products that come out of Africa that are used by corporations based in the West, i.e., Europe, i.e., the U.S., my understanding is that Ethiopia, among other items, produces a lot of leather that ultimately gets made into Italian leather shoes and these expensive handbags. The very same leather from Ethiopia, is that so?
My,
That they get for pennies on a dollar?
my friends, they get it cheap, and the end result basically will be very expensive.
Okay, I know I'm asking you a lot of questions. Hair. In black America, African Americans wholeheartedly support the fake hair industry, of which South Korea, from my understanding, is the dominant player in that. Do you think that Ethiopia could produce hair that women, black women in America, would buy? I know this is way off the beaten path, but it just came to mind. Maybe we'll talk about that the next time.
Next time, I would rather write my sisters in the United States just to be proud and use their own hair.
Okay, so anything that we missed in our Middle East update? Well, one thing that did happen since we've last interviewed you, President Barack Obama said that Americans consume 1/4 of the oil in the world.
That's true, and that's
And we're
why
only 300 million. What's going to happen when China and India get to full capacity in terms
actually,
of car drivers?
actually China and India are the ones who are putting some pressure on the global oil supply because they are the ones who are using a lot of oil
Increasingly.
increasingly, and so that is basically putting pressure on the global oil market.
Okay. Any final thoughts?
Well, a lot of things are unraveling in the Arab world, and soon also, hopefully, in African countries who are where the people are very hungry for democracy and peace and sustainable development. And there is this notion of dehumanization. When you have poverty, it is dehumanizing. The first thing African leaders need to do is fight poverty. The way, for example, Brazil has done it. In about 10 years, 20 million people have come out of poverty, and that's
In
what
Brazil?
In Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope African countries also will follow suit and take Brazil as an example and fight poverty. Poverty is dehumanizing when you have poor people, and that's very agonizing. On the other hand, the rich people are living lavishly, the ruling elite. The gap between the haves and the have-nots is basically growing by the day.
We
And
call them Republicans over here in the States.
oh well, yeah.
Just a little pun there.
Okay.
Dr. Getachew Metaferia, political science professor at Morgan State University. We love and respect you. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. All the best.
Keep watching BMORENEWS.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth.